So first, just uploaded a new team update, and it has a pretty major rules change for the FTC Decode season that you need to make sure you're aware of moving into the rest of this season. I'm Coach Pratt, and I've been a robotics and design educator for over a decade now. And today we're going to go through one pretty major rules change to the FTC Decode season from the team update number 3. And then 2, there are 3 minor rules changes that aren't huge groundbreaking changes, but they do change how you might approach your strategy this season. So let's get into that first major change first. And this first major change has to do with expansion limits. Now, we already knew up to this point that there were 18-inch expansion limits. Yeah, so you're not allowed to expand past 18. If you were part of first last season for the Into the Deep season, you were allowed to have software limits. This year, you have to have a mechanical extension limit. So robots must show their mechanical extensions during the inspection process, and you cannot expand past those 18 inches or those 45.37 centimeters. Now, something that has shifted here is a robot with a single mechanism that can extend out both sides of the robot would be allowed as long as the overall horizontal dimension at maximum mechanical extension does not exceed 18 inches. So this is a big shift because in previous seasons previously, as far as the best of my understanding, you had your 18-inch box and you could expand out to 18 inches, but you couldn't choose either side of those 18 inches. But now this current rule is saying that in position A, you are viewed from one side and then you're viewed from the opposite direction. So as long as you're not moving outside of 18 inches on either side, not 18 inches in total, just 18 inches of max extension on either side, that is a new acceptable way of treating that 18-inch rules. So that is a pretty cool shift. And that may change how you decide to do some of your mechanisms. The second one is a robot with multiple mechanisms that are not mechanically linked. So imagine this is a linear slide that can go both ways. Would not be allowed to have that total maximum extension at both times. So this one is, again, you just can't be out past 18 inches. So for example, here, it's taking that same response, but you couldn't have both. If it's one mechanism that moves 18 and 18, that's okay. If it's 2 mechanisms and they're both pulled out, it has to be at maximum extension, regardless of whether you actually run both of them out at the same time or not. You have to have them both simultaneously out with that maximum mechanical extension, even if they're powered or not, even if you'd only have one of them moving or not. So if it's one mechanism, it can move across both through the 18 inches. If it's 2 separate mechanisms that are not mechanically linked, then you would have to move them individually. So that's a pretty big shift in the rules. The second shift in the rules that I think is an important one is referring to robots in the gate mechanism itself. That is that black bar. You are not allowed to apply any closing force to either gate. So you already weren't allowed to contact your own opposing alliance's gate, but now you are not allowed to close the gate. So if you're finding these gates take time for them to eventually pull through, it'll be interesting to see just how many times you could cycle that gate all the way through if you're not allowed to close that gate after. And as we've seen before, as you try to lift one of these gates up, it can be a challenge if there's already a ball in the way for it to actually stick itself back down. So teams, you're probably going to have to do some testing as to how many cycles in total in 2 minutes could you actually have that gate come down, and how long does it take to fully clear out all of your artifacts across. Another another minor shift that I think is important here is that the scoring elements that leave the field are going to be returned to the closest available driver or human player, not necessarily just a drive team member. So that's a cool one that can also go up to the human player. And then the last one that I think is a pretty good shift is talking about the reach award, and it's how their reach activities support the first community. So this is a cool one because it's not necessarily, I think that it's important to have the idea of the first community being strong, but you can run into a bit of an issue of, so to say, like the cult of first, in that you have to be promoting just first-based activities as opposed to STEM activities, and first is a great provider of doing STEM activities. But I think you end up running the risk of pushing really hard just for one specific brand. And I get that first is really important, and there's a lot of big deals here, but I do have a bit of an issue with just promoting FIRST as a way of promoting the STEM community in general, as opposed to getting more students into engineering fields, into science fields, into mathematics fields, into design fields, and things like that. FIRST is a great way of doing it, but it's not the only way of doing it. And I think that that is a good shift that's moving more towards how do you get the whole community within FIRST as opposed to just FIRST objectives themselves. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think about these new expansion mechanisms that you're allowed to have a single mechanism that's mechanically linked on either sides? I'm really curious to see if there's going to be any sort of dual side intakes that come out of this, or perhaps some sort of rotating turret that's capable of moving over on both sides, something like that. And then what are your thoughts on this new gate? Did you have some sort of prototyping mechanism for your ability to open and close the gate sooner that now is no longer in play, especially at sort of high level ranks? So that's going to be really interesting to see what ends happening there. And what are your thoughts on the new reach award, them being able to open that up? In any case, thanks for listening. Thanks for checking out the team update number 3, and best of luck out there this next season.